If there was one thing that you could change in our zoning, what would it be? We'll go ahead and start this one with Tammy.
Well, I have to deal with the zoning guidelines and rules a lot because we're thinking about expansion of our business and ways to do business differently. It's my understanding that our city paid a lot of money for consultants to help the Planning Commission in developing a comprehensive plan. So for me, we've already paid the money and it was your dollars and my dollars. So let's use it. Let's make good use of it. And I think we should make good use of it from kind of three different stances. Make sure it's fair, and being fair, making sure it's being used consistently across all business types, whether you're rich, poor, wherever you live, no matter what, make sure it is being utilized and enforced consistently. And make sure that people understand what the zoning ordinances are. And if you don't, where do I go to get help? Who do I talk to? Who can offer me solutions instead of roadblocks and help me understand what each of those rules and regulations really mean to me, not only as a private citizen, but also as a business. And then just trying to make it easy and simple as possible. And I want to make sure that everyone has access to it, that they can easily go to the website, wherever they need to go to understand it. And then finally, right now is, how do we utilize that zoning ordinance? I think we need to step back and say, okay, we've spent all this money on it. How do we make sure that we utilize it for the benefit of everyone, for all the businesses, to help us grow and help those who are already here to be successful, both in the private, both as a private citizen, in my home, whatever I want to do from a zoning perspective, as well as in businesses. So those are my thoughts.
All right, thank you, Tammy. Let's go to Jim.
Well, it basically echoes what the vice mayor had said. Specifically, when I'm talking about zoning, we're talking about Chris Bridges. This is a man who is on many national boards determining zoning ordinances, and he is an invaluable resource that folks need to take advantage of. The laws are always changing, and I think something that we could do better is educating citizens on what the changes are being issued by our friends in Richmond, and Chris Bridges playing a part in that. Saw him today at City Hall, and I said, so are you forcing folks to take, to comply with ordinances that are just yours? He says, no, they're issued by, state and federal entities, and I have had a chance to make things simpler. He has streamlined that the process for zoning compliance, and I think that's what we need to do is utilize resources in our city staff who are so knowledgeable. Our city manager, serving the city for over 30 years, is a wonderful source of wisdom, as is our assistant city manager and city attorney. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right, let's move on to Nelson.
Now can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, there are a number of things I'd like to change about our zoning, but the most unfair thing, I believe, is the restrictions and the regulations that are put on individuals who own the property in certain zoning areas. I can give you an example. I remember there's a local dentist, I believe, on Starland Avenue, that needed for an old dilapidated building to be torn down. So he needed parking. He needed parking space. And there were a lot of headaches and problems that followed. And this is a common sense solution that was drug out too long, and a perfect example over zoning abuses.
All right, thank you. Let's move to Kathy.
Okay. Well, as Tammy has stated, and it is a very true statement, the city paid a consultant a lot of money to revamp our zoning ordinances several years ago. And it seemed like the project that was never going to end, it went on and on and on. However, the zoning categories were finally redesigned, streamlined, but there are still hoops. There are hoops that people don't understand the process. There needs to be open communication on all levels, whether whether you are the mom and pop or whether you're the big business, it doesn't matter. Everyone should be given the same opportunity in going through the zoning process. The question specifically asks, what one thing would you want to change? And that the thing that comes to mind to me is the cost. There is a cost to request a zoning variance because it's a legal requirement to print our local in our local newspaper notices of public hearings. And the property owner or the business owner, whoever is making this application, has to go through this process of requesting it before one committee, then that committee has to bring it before council, then there has to be an approval, and it has to be printed in the newspaper twice. And there's a cost to that. And it would be really nice if we could figure out some way to where the property owner or the business owner did not have to incur yet another additional cost to get their business up and running. So to me, the one thing that if I could change something in the zoning, it would be the cost for a variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, and we'll wrap this question up with Chad.
You know, to kind of mirror Mr. Woods, I sit a lot in employees' offices here at the city staff because I want to understand fully what they do. We have a lot, especially senior staff, we have a lot of senior staff that don't have to be here. They are recognized nationally, as Mr. Woods has said, and they could very easily, and people are actually trying to get them to come to different areas. They are strictly here because they love Martinsville. They love living here. They love the people here. And so a lot of our people, and Chris Bridges is one of those people. And so I sit in his office a lot to learn about the zoning because Chris is on that national organization that actually wrote the book for the zoning. And so the only thing I would change, because what Chris led me on to believe, a lot of people are mad about regulations and things of that nature, but people have to realize those are in place to protect you, not to make you jump through some ridiculous hoops. They are in place to protect you. And so one thing I would change, similar to what Mayor Lawson said, I would remove the costs for the special use permit. Now, we do as council have the opportunity to say nay or yay, but I would remove it altogether to make sure it's inclusive and equitable for everybody. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for those answers. We'll move on to the next question. If elected, what 3 steps would you take to put our community on a firmer financial footing? And we'll start this question with Jim.
Thank you. Well, the 3 that I do in the process that I've been doing since August of 2018 is the first is to question city staff who are responsible for the preparation of the budget and see if there are other potential revenue sources in our city. We've got a man named Wayne Davis at Public Works who has found a source of revenue by creating providing dumpsters for businesses, and I utilize that when I manage the Uptown Library. Instead of having somebody come in month after month, even though I didn't need to use it, Wayne had offered a brand new dumpster and came and emptied it on on an as-needed basis, saving us hundreds of dollars. And in a nonprofit, that's huge. So that, I mean, that's any number of resources that we could use to buy books or videos. A second thing is find more. I think that we need to find more ways to save Martinsville taxpayers money, like we did when we partnered with the YMCA to take over Parks and Rec. They do a phenomenal job, and so that's another way that we can make this process better. And finally, the third one is to proceed with negotiations with our neighbors in Henry County with regard to reversions.
Thank you, Jim. All right, let's move on to Nelson. Oh, we can't hear you, Nelson.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Apple. All right. Let me start with getting out of the electricity business. We should have gotten out of electricity business when it was deregulated. Martinsville doesn't have the size of personnel to be dealing in international energy. And there will need to be a couple of charter changes, including a Jim Crow law that blocks non-property owners from having a voice in the sale of utilities. Now, past councils and administrations are responsible for the mistakes and bad decisions that have cost Martinsville tens of millions of dollars in costs. And I feel like they should be held accountable. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nelson. Let's move on to Kathy.
Okay. In our city, we operate with a bare bones budget. We are very conscious of the needs of our citizens while making our financial decisions every year when we prepare our budgets. We are very fortunate that we have wonderful citizens, with wonderful workers who provide services to our citizens, and we provide quality utility service to not only our citizens, but to our local businesses. It is a proven fact that a strong uptown business district is necessary for a vibrant commercial community. And we have to have a strong cooperative relationship with our uptown businesses and our property owners. Working well with the chamber and the Main Street group is a necessity. And we have to ask, do we need this to accomplish the mission today? In government, you plan for tomorrow as things take time to accomplish. It's not something that you can do overnight. It's not something that you can say, oh, I wish we had done this, or I wish we had done that. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of research. It takes transparency. It takes conversation. We have to listen to the needs of our citizen and our business owners and understand where they're coming from when we're making decisions for our city. And it's together, cooperatively with our citizens and business owners, that we can move our city forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Let's move to Chad.
Yes, can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. If elected, what 3 steps would you take to put our community on a firmer financial footing?
Right. And so a lot of people talk about what they would do. What myself and what the mayor and what Mr. Woods are already doing, as the city manager reported, there are 7 new projects that hasn't been done in years that are now coming into fruition for next year. Another situation that would be really great is to make sure we're consistently listening to our citizens, consistently going door to door to make sure that we're hearing from them what they're actually dealing with. And then 3, which I think is probably going to be another question that you're going to ask, is reversion. Reversion is going to help in a lot of these issues as far as the Martinsville City moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to Tammy.
Well, from my perspective, since I haven't been on the council, to me, the 3 things would be to focus more on economic development and sustainability of the current businesses that we have. How can we help both large and small businesses be more successful, come into our community, be easier to do business with? Can we offer incentives, less taxes? Really, what do we need to do to bring in businesses and keep current? Also, can we be more creative and think outside the box and get input from our local entrepreneurs and businesses? And really, the bottom line is, let's finish talking and take action to bring in new businesses and keep businesses. Also, recruitment of people and families to Martinsville. That will create a stronger revenue base, tax revenue base for us. And we can work with many groups to achieve this. We have a great fiber backbone. Let's take advantage of that. We could work with the Move to Martinsville group, the EDC, Harvest, and others to make sure that we're doing a national marketing effort to get more people to move to Martinsville, in addition to working on making sure that we have affordable housing for them to move into. And then third for me is, as already been mentioned, is I want to make sure that we work through our issues with the county and determine if there are opportunities for shared services, as well as the ability to focus on joint economic development. Because a lot of new businesses coming in here, they don't just look at Martinsville and they don't just look at Henry County. They look at us from a joint perspective.
All right, thank you, Tammy. Moving on to the next question. And this is kind of an either or and explain question. So what is more important, building new homes in commercial space or rehabbing, expanding, or better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts? Nelson, we'll start this question with you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, okay. Well, I think we're blessed to have been a thriving city with a lot of beautiful homes and buildings. So we should rehab and utilize our existing stock, but we should foster policies that will encourage new investment. So my answer to this question is both.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to Kathy.
Okay, they are both important and not one more important than the other. There are times that new construction is an absolute must. There are times when there might be a specific manufacturer who needs certain ceiling heights or certain types of floors. And that with the buildings that we have in the city, that might be an issue for them. So, you know, we have a lot of old textile and furniture facilities where the ceilings are too low for a modern day manufacturer or warehouser. However, these buildings are gems in the rough that can be repurposed. There is a lot of history in our older buildings, beautiful building characteristics. So why would you want to tear something like that down when it can be rejuvenated, revised, repurposed, and given a new life in our uptown area? Our limits are financial, our limitations are financial, and sometimes our limitations are our imaginations. Just look at the buildings in our uptown area that have been repurposed. Look at the Henry, the Hope building, the former location where social services used to be. Steve Rucker turned that building into a gym with absolutely gorgeous hardwood floors and crown molding. New college classrooms on Franklin Street. We have a lot of potential for buildings in our community that just need a facelift. The building beside Tammy's restaurant, just as an example, we have an opportunity to do something creative and imaginative in our beautiful uptown, and we have to look outside of the box sometimes to determine what we're going to do with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Chad, go ahead.
That's a really important question. With Virginia Natural Resources Institute, I just graduated from there, and Leadership Southside in Danville. Just graduated from that as well. And so Virginia Natural Resources took us all throughout the state of Virginia to learn about natural resources. And as we went into every location to see that Martinsville is a tale of a lot of cities, that people have made their city a comeback city. And so they have repurposed those buildings. You see where grocery stores are now breweries with restaurants. You see in Winston, they have a brewery down there. You look at the projects that we're already doing, that we're repurposing. You look at the BB&T building, what we're going to do with that. You look at the area where we're going to start utilizing the group from Winston-Salem who's going to make apartments for the elderly. We're already doing that. One of our issues has been the blight issue. And so it's the homes. We have a lot of homes that need to be, need some TLC, quite frankly. And the last time I looked at the budget, we only had 15,000 to demo. That 15,000 can be ate up by one house. And so we need to start actually putting more money with the budget into that piece of the budget to make sure we can start demolition houses or put them in our land bank that we already have, and we hand them over to private developers and they repurpose those houses.
Thank you, Chad. Tammy.
Well, I'm probably going to echo what most everyone is saying, is that both are important. We definitely did have a successful economic past. Now let's learn from that and build upon it. So for me, it's really including a review of what's currently there. How much is it going to cost to rehab versus new buildings? And also, we have to realize we do have limited land space here in Martinsville to have new construction. So that's where that partnership with our county comes into play, I think. And I'm one of those. I am one of those who took a building in uptown Martinsville and I rehabbed it. So I was on there painting and scrubbing floors and getting it ready to be a catering business and ultimately a restaurant and catering business. So I definitely believe in rehabbing storefronts, rehabbing houses, building new houses, finding ways, creative ways to find new housing for us in Martinsville. I can stand outside my business right now and I can count 10 to 12 storefronts that are empty. So we've talked about those for a long time, and now it's like taking the action to get people in there, to get entrepreneurs and businesses in there and get those open by working together with the city, with grants, with the EDC, with Harvest, and finding ways to make those storefronts viable for local businesses and entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Tammy. And finally, we'll wrap this question up with Jim.
Thank you. We can have both. We absolutely can have both. When you hear the litany of things that are going on, I gave you a litany of different people that have done different things in businesses. Uptown, you look at Main Street Scrubs, you look at the Building Brands business. You see all of these things, and we're doing the right thing. We can have both. We can rehab. I'm on the Theater Works Community Players Board. Dr. Mervyn King has been crucial in the revitalization of some of these magnificent buildings that we have uptown. But we're also building out there on Aaron Street, as the Vice Mayor was saying. We're partnering with private entities to do this, and we can have our cake and eat it too, I believe.
Thank you, Jim. Now moving on to the next question, several of you have touched on this already, so we'll just go into a little more detail. How specifically do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process for our community? And we'll start this question with Kathy.
Okay. Well, we have to listen. That's why we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth. We need to listen to the concerns of our neighbors, our constituents across town, our business owners. We have to understand where they're coming from and what their concerns are. I'm always listening to the concerns of our citizens and our business owners, and listening is the key. you have to understand where they are coming from. This past Saturday, I was in a neighborhood volunteering with a food program, and I had some really beneficial conversations with folks about many different subjects that were concerning to them and their livelihood and their neighborhoods. And if you're not out there in the community talking with people, how do you have a clue as to what's going on? I ask questions. I'm available to our citizens. You have to be approachable. A quick trip to the grocery store, maybe an hour and a half when you thought you were going to run into the grocery store and pick up a couple of things, but you don't say, oh, I'm busy, I've got to go. You're going to stand there and you're going to have a conversation, and you're going to take notes, or as I do, I get my cell phone out and I send myself an email to remind me that I need to do this. Or if it's a particular location they're talking about, I make notation of it. But you have to be willing to hear the words of your constituency. It's imperative. You know, we are a representative form of government, and at the end of the day, we have to arm ourselves with citizen input. That is the most important part of serving on council, is listening and taking appropriate action. We do have to make the best decisions from facts and research, and we do it for the greater good of all of our citizens and our businesses and our community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Let's move on to Chad.
Paul Tillich, theologian Paul Tillich said, the first duty of love is to listen. And Kathy hit it right on the money. Our mayor hit it right on the money. If you are not out in this community, if you are staying indoors and think you can represent the city of Martinsville, you are strongly mistaken. Always put on numerous events, and I'm not just talking about the rich. I'm talking about being out there with the poor. When I stay at the shelter, the women's shelter, I would wonder why those guys would get so happy when it snowed. And I realized when they would leave, they would go and actually shovel snow to make money. But if you don't realize that we have that kind of population in the area, you will assume that Martinsville doesn't have homeless issues. When you realize that veterans deal with certain things in this area, and being able to connect the people to the actual resources that we have is one of the amazing experiences about serving on council, because some of the first people they will call is us, because they think that we know every single thing that's going on in the city. The big plus for me was being on the suicide hotline, which was also the resource hotline in Martinsville and Henry County. And serving on there for 3 years, I really got a better sense of all the organizations and what they actually do. And one thing that I really wish that we would do better in this area, when the United States Armed Forces goes to war, whether it be the Army, the Navy, Air Force, Marines, they are consistently communicating their position. If they don't, they will have a situation called friendly fire, where you're killing each other because you're not communicating. Martinsville, we have got to do a better job at communicating to people what we actually do. And the only way you can do that is if you go door to door knocking out there in the community, hosting community events, which I've done numerous times. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Let's move on to Tammy.
Okay, really, I think it's all about being proactive. So don't wait for citizens to come to you, you go to them. And be transparent and share as much detail as you possibly can, whether it's sharing contracts, other details that have been discussed. And instead of going closed door, be open door, and share that information in an honest, transparent way. So basically for me, it's communicate, communicate, communicate. But by that, I just don't mean one-way communication, the city council telling the citizens. I also mean the citizens telling the council, and what their feedback and input is from the information that we have, that the council has received. Also, I mean, I'm that regular citizen, and hopefully I'm not dumb or I'm, I do my own research. I want to know what's going on, and I want to know everything that's going on because it's going to impact me, my business, and my children's future. So I really want that information shared and the input received. Also, as my fellow candidates have said, it's not just listening, but it's taking action upon what they're saying. And so letting them have that voice and making sure that our citizens know they are being heard. And when I'm also, what I mean by that is when you share the information, make sure they understand it, because a lot of it could be jargon that many of us, legal jargon, things like that, that many of us can't understand. So make sure the citizens understand it, give them time to digest it, and then give them time to give their input. And then finally, just thinking outside the box. I love what Chad said he does, going out into the community. Let's do more town halls. Let's do Zoom calls now that we maybe can't knock on the doors. Could we do just phone conference calls, because a lot may not have internet or things like that, and really making sure that we understand the why behind it, and then getting the input into making future decisions.
Thank you, Tammy. All right, let's move on to Jim.
As a former civics teacher, one of the things that I communicated to my students was that government was not engaged as much because of citizen apathy. It comes down to, it's incumbent upon citizens to realize, if you want a voice, all right, come and reach out to every member of council has a telephone number, an email, even our address. So if you want to write us a letter, you want to send us an email, you want to give us a text, it's incumbent upon you. We have boards and commissions on our website. There are boards and commissions that you can have a say-so in. And our planning commission, our library, all of these different entities require citizen engagement. But if we have to shake the bushes to get our citizens to come out, then so be it. But it's incumbent upon you to come to, when we go to have the neighborhood meetings. Now, this was prior to COVID, but when we have our neighborhood meetings, then come and express not only your concerns, because that's great, but comments about what we're doing right in South Side when we get to go to that United Methodist Church that has awesome food. When we get to go to Patrick Henry Elementary for Druid Hills, we get to go to Albert Harris to the library and go there and talk to the citizens. When we go to the different places, when we go to McCabe Baptist Church, which they also had some awesome food there. It's not just about food, but it's about engaging the folks that are your voice. And you don't just have one, if you say you live in Druid Hills, you don't just come to the person that lives in Druid Hills who's on council. You come to everybody. And it's incumbent upon you to come to the neighborhood meetings and communicate your comments, concerns, or questions.
All right, thank you, Jim. And we'll wrap this question up with Nelson.
Well, can you hear me? Oh, good. Okay. Well, I'm in agreement with everybody here. We need to be out in the public and attending events and listening and learning from our constituents. And it's like I missed the TGIFs. I missed every one of them this year. I love going out to those and being around people. And I think that's what the council people should do as well. And I just think it's very important that we, all of us, be more transparent with our residents of the city of Martinsville. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll move on to our last question. And we did have some comments earlier about this, but we'll direct this question. Are you for or against reversion, and why? And we'll start that with Chad.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, I am for reversion. Voted for it. I wish we could have waited a little bit just to do a re-education of what reversion is to the citizens, but we we needed to move on that. Reversion is going to help Martinsville. When it finally comes out, it's going to be a whole lot better deal than what people might assume, or the fake news that's out there about that, the misinformation that citizens are getting. One of the things Leadership Southside taught me, a young lady came in the room and she said, everybody has to change one piece of clothing. Immediately, everybody took one piece of clothing off. And she said, do you realize 95% of people think change is about losing something? And so this change, the reversion that we're going to go through, while it might be new, while it might be different, it is not a lose-lose situation. It will be a win-win situation for both the county and the new town of Martinsville.
Thank you, Chad. Tammy.
Thank you. Well, I believe, just like many of my fellow neighbors and citizens, I don't really understand how we can be for or against something if we don't have all the facts and maybe what's been discussed behind closed doors or things like that. So it's really hard for me right now to say whether I'm for or against it, because I really can't support something and make a sound decision if I don't fully believe in it and have all the needed information and have more input from not just the citizens of Martinsville, but the citizens, the administrators of Henry County. Of course, people ask me, of course I'm concerned about double taxation. I'm concerned about property tax increases and things like that. And I'm sure our neighboring citizens of Henry County feel the same way. And I really want us to be working together, not in opposition. We've engaged auditors and other subject matter experts in regards to reviewing the reversion opportunity that we have. But I want to make sure that we also get additional input from our Commissioner of Revenue, from more input from the citizens, because I think we maybe had 15 or 16, something like that, citizens give their input formally, at least. Henry County citizens as well as SMEs. And if we're in the dire straits that's been presented, I want to make sure that we've also looked at other solutions than just reversion. And from my limited viewpoint and the facts that I've been able to research, that's kind of my stance.
All right. Thank you, Tammy. Jim, you're next.
Yes, ma'am. I voted for reversion because I believe that the fates of Martinsville and Henry County are inextricably tied. And as a Rotarian, I believe that there are 4 questions that I ask. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? At the end of the day, we've done our due diligence. The reversion studies are online. If you want to see what was going on behind closed doors, or if you want to see what was being discussed, there were open forums where we had opportunities for citizens to ask questions of the folks that had put together the study that we had to submit to the Commission on Local Government. That it's incumbent upon the citizen to do it. And at the end of the day, I don't want to adjudicate this process in the court of public opinion, but with leaders in Henry County, with having leaders from the city, and if it's decided that citizens will be a part of that discussion, I welcome it. But we have to submit these studies, and we've done them with what I thought was wide support. Again, I don't know what reversion looks like, but I know that there's duplication of services, and we want to make sure that we are doing what's right by the citizens of Martinsville and by our neighbors in Henry County.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Nelson, you're next. Oh, you're muted.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, well, I'll be for filing with the courts to start down the road to reversion, and to let the county and the small business person know that we're not out to harm them. And the independent city concept has become outdated, and we need to work with the Virginia General Assembly to help make this fair to all. So I'm definitely in favor of reversion, and without any conflict and without hurting anybody in the county or anywhere else.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then finally, Kathy.
Okay. Yes, I voted for reversion, and let me just make this statement. Reversion is a process. It's something that doesn't happen overnight. There can be many different outcomes from reversion. It could be we become a town. We could have combined services. There could be a multiple of different scenarios that occur from this discussion. Several times in the past few years, council attempted to open the door of conversation with our colleagues in Henry County. The same thing with the schools. Many years ago, they were having conversation and then the door shut. Voting for reversion was, did open the door. And so it is very unfortunate, as Nelson said, that Virginia is so antiquated that we are the only state that has independent city status. Every other state in the United States has dependent city status, and that's where we are. There are so many services that are duplicated in the city and the county that could be a financial benefit to both localities. We do have to be mindful so that, as Tammy said, we don't want our businesses and our citizens to be double anything. We want it to be financially a good decision for our citizens. And there are so many other areas other than just the obvious of schools and constitutionals that could be looked at. I believe there is a better way for us to work together for more financially efficient government, and reversion will take us down that pathway of conversation and negotiation with our colleagues in Henry County. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to all the candidates. And on behalf of the chamber, I'd like to express our appreciation to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules and sharing your thoughts with us about the future of our community. So good luck in the upcoming election, and thank you and good evening.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you to the
Thank you.
chamber.
And I would like to just add to thank you to everyone. And Ann, thank you so much for moderating this evening. And two, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Appalachian Power, because they are our legislative and government affairs sponsor. So they sponsor everything of this type throughout the year. So thank you to them, and thank you to all of you guys.
Thank you.
And thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank